Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Please try to give your undivided attention. So first we're finding something about Lord Balaram. Today, as you all know, Baladeva Purnima, appearance of Balaram. Purnima, this is the Purnima. 8 days after the Purnima, 1 year later, then Krishna appeared. Not 8 days later. 1 year and 8 days later, Krishna appeared. So Lord Balaram being the elder brother of Krishna in Leela. So, and the senior, not really Shakti, but the senior Shaktiman other than Krishna. Everything goes through Balaram. Whatever there is in this world, including the Jiva souls, all of that comes from Lord Balaram. Everything starts from him. Krishna has no work to do, not even manifesting something. So when it gets around to manifesting something, that laborious task of infinite manifesting, well, Lord Krishna doesn't even raise a little finger. He doesn't do anything. It all begins with Balaram, all the different expansions and energies and the jivas. And there's some other things going on too, but primarily as far as the world is concerned, it all begins from Lord Balaram. And then Shankarshan, and then the Vishnu avatars, and the expansion of the world, and creation of all things, and ta-da, from Lord Balaram. So, generally speaking, people have no idea how God really functions. The Christian idea, the Islamic idea is he's a big formless evil dude in the sky who is easily agitated, can't figure out what he wants, created this world which didn't turn out the way he wanted it. He doesn't know what to do about it. So he's kind of like, in frustration, he killed his own son. Totally frustrated, right? So they have no real idea how God works. First off, he has no work. No work whatsoever. Not even the work of creating the world or anything. Not even the work of answering our prayers. No work. For actually our prayers to reach all the way to Krishna's ears, well, you better stick to just singing the songs of previous acharyas. Then he might hear. But composing your own is kind of, not very profitable. To think that from such a low position, our prayers can go all the way to the ear of the Supreme God. That's a little bit stretching it, isn't it? It doesn't seem to have any humility in that thinking. So, okay, so now we're going to hear something from Srila Sridhar Maharaj about Lord Balaram.
The question is, does Lord Balaram expand himself into the form of the Dham? Is Vaikuntha Dham an expansion of Lord Balaram?
Are you following the question?
Yeah.
The Dham like Vrindavan Dham, Mayapur Dham, the Dhams.
So the Sridhar Maharaj says, it is Lord Balaram's representation in the form of Sankarsana. Lord Balaram himself is in Goloka, and his Vaibhava, extended or delegated self, is in Vaikuntha. Devotee asks, and he himself expands in the Golok Dham? Srila Sridhar Maharaj says, yes, Golok Vrindavan is all his expansion, but there he is always active through his expansion as the underground Sandhini, unifying potency, whereas his Madhura Rasa is passive. In Goloka, Radharani's Vaibhav is having full play, and Balaram's potency is there passively as Yogamaya. Balaram and Yogamaya are of a similar function. Both of them combined are conducting the arrangements of the stage for Krishna's pastimes.
So the first, what he said, arranging the stage of Krishna's pastimes. If you painted God as the center, right? And picture somebody an artist painted God as the center, right? And just kind of just picture, okay, wherever he is, there he is, What's his business? What's his business? Well, his business is his own. It's his business. You hit it. his business is what's first, not our business, not the business of this world, but the business of the spiritual world comes first. Remember, this is an unnecessary mishap, the material world. It's not really required in terms of our existence. You don't really require this world. It doesn't have to exist. It's an afterthought. It comes much later. The primary interest of God is his own interest in his own world, which is not a mistake. It's a reality, the eternal world. And so Lord Balaram first expands his energies, let's call that, in such a way as to provide the field of Krishna's Leela, both actively and passively. Actively in all the rasas except Madhurya Ras, and there he acts passively. Quite a big mystery how Ananga Manjari, the sister of Radharani has a sister. The sister of Radharani also has a brother. The sister of Radharani is Ananga Manjari. And don't ask me any more than what is said. Ananga Manjari is the representation of Balaram in Madhurya Ras. But what does that mean? I haven't the faintest idea. It simply means what it says. Ananga Manjari is a representation of Balaram. But then, would you offer Ananga Manjari a tulsi leaf? A tulsi leaf is offered to Vishnu Tattva. Balaram is Vishnu Tattva. Is Ananga Manjari Vishnu Tattva? I don't think so. I think it's probably more along the arrangement of I Spy. Ananga Manjari is the eyes and ears, boots on the ground for Lord Balaram. But he himself has no direct foreplay or play in Madhurya Rasa. So everything else in the spiritual world that is being manifest for the Leela of Krishna, first coming through the arrangement of Balaram. Therefore he knows pretty much everything always. And even when other residents of the spiritual world are seemingly bewildered about what's happening with Krishna, like when Krishna dances on Kaliya, for sure everybody in Vrindavan thinks Krishna is going to be killed. You know, they are sincerely concerned at that moment. It isn't a drama like, oh, look what Krishna is doing now. No, it's like, oh, people are fainting all over, rolling into the river. Everyone figures Krishna is being destroyed. Everyone except Lord Balaram. Because he's the one who's making all these arrangements. His Yoga Maya sets the field. In other words, if there was a big university drama going on or something, a big opera going on in the Opera House in London tonight, well, if you went there right now, what you would see was all the stagehands preparing the scene, preparing everything. And then the actors will descend. So everything is prepared by Lord Balaram. Because it's prepared by him, he knows everything. Isn't it? Like what you're involved with, you know. He's involved with everything. So he knows everything. Krishna is all omniscient, but to his agents. He is not bothered by the clamor of this world. Can you imagine? Why would God want to hear the prayers of this world? There's 7 billion idiots on this planet going, oh, help me, give me money. I want an import license. Please give me a green card. You know, let's kill the Muslims. Everyone's praying to God. The Muslims plead, Allah will chop many heads for you today. Do you think he really has time or is even interested in all that crap, all that nonsense? Well, how do we think that way? Because we think we're the center. We think all this is for us. God created all this is for us. This is all for us, and he's trying to figure out how to make it better for us. You know, we never stopped to think that maybe we tripped over something and fell into this mess, and it actually, if we hadn't tripped, it wasn't necessary to begin with. Well, that's actually the truth of the material world. My sister used to tell me, well, God made this world for us to enjoy. And I used to say, well, then he ought to get another occupation. Because if I was a travel agent and I structured your vacation to a place where you were going to get malaria, you were going to get kidnapped by terrorists, you were going to get robbed at the ATM machine, you're going to get diseases and spend the whole vacation in a hospital, and what to speak of, you're only born with one arm, not two like everybody else. I mean, has God lost the plot? This is to enjoy? It's like making a cactus garden full of tigers and telling it's a children's day school. There's nothing here but cactus and tigers. So if God made this world to enjoy, why is there death? Why is there suffering? Why is there lamentation? Why is there all this stuff? Why are things biting me, trying to eat me, trying to kill me? So I figured, no, it wasn't God that didn't have any intelligence, it was my sister. Not because she was a woman, because she was a Christian. They're all less intelligent. According to Bhakti Vinod, you have to be less intelligent to follow that line of thinking. In other words, it doesn't have a line of thinking, it just has a bunch of unconnected, incoherent, illogical statements that make no sense at all. If you think, what is God? What is his position? What should he do today? What would he do? So the work of this world is so boring. The Lord Balaram doesn't even take it up directly. It's quite a few Chatur Vyuha expansions before it even gets down to the work of this world. So Lord Balaram, he's pretty much enjoying also, but his enjoyment is solely in the service of Krishna. So, but first he makes the play for the Lord's own drama in the Leela.
The next question. Maharaj, what is the position of Subhadra?
This was very interesting. This sparked that whole article, didn't it?
Yeah. Srila Shrima says, her position is not in Vrindavan, but in Dwarka. The Subhadra in Jagannath Dham is Arjuna Patni, the wife of Arjuna, and sister of Krishna. She is within Dwarka Leela and has nothing to do with Vrindavan. Besides this, there is another Subhadra, who is one among the many Sakis of Radharani in Vrindavan. She is called Bhadra or Subhadra. Then the devotee asks, is it Dwarka Subhadra, who is also sometimes referred to as Yoga Maya? Srila Sridhar says, no. At the time when I was composing Prapana Jivanamritam, I was faced with the position of having to think very deeply on this point. What is the relation between Baladeva and Yoga Maya? Then, although I did not find it anywhere in the scriptures, I discovered within myself that Baladeva must be the master of Yoga Maya. That is, after analyzing the spiritual environment of their pastimes, I came to the conclusion that they must have some connection. They are both making arrangements for Krishna Leela, so their relationship must be very intimate. Yoga Maya must be in the position of the wife of Balaram. This conclusion came to me, and then later on I found that Jiva Goswami had also expressed such an opinion that Yoga Maya and Baladev are very close and similar, and also Vrinda Devi's nature and conduct is of a very similar nature to them in this respect. Yoga Maya is in the inner circle, the Shakti position, and Balaram is in the outer or male circle, the second layer, but in the center is only Krishna, feeling his own ecstasy. Sukharupa Krishna Kore Sukha Ashwadhan.
See, the people of this world think religion's all about being saved. Either being saved and go to heaven or just being saved from their suffering. But religion has nothing to do with the suffering of this world. It's like taking the suffering out of this world, there'd be nothing left. There'd be no world left. Look at these birds. We say, oh, isn't it beautiful, the birds singing? If you could hear what they're singing about, they're crying, I didn't get enough to eat yesterday, it's like, that damn cat ate my sister, And it's like, oh, there's a bug. They fly down, chomp on a nice juicy bug. It's like, where is it? It's just suffering. It's just misery everywhere. What is everybody doing in these cities? They're just fighting each other like ants, grabbing food, stalking it, eating, getting some money, just jockeying for position. They're worse than ants. They're lined up in their cars like these ants on the sidewalk around here. When you live in the country, you see the ants doing the thing, then you see the people doing the thing. It's like, if you watch that film called Samsara or Baraka, they just speed up the camera and they show you we live just like insects. Go to factories and do the same thing all day. The same motion all day. People just doing this, all dressed the same. thousands of people making computers. And then the other people sitting there using them until their hands become like praying mantises. They get these diseases called, what's it called?
Carpal tunnel syndrome.
They become like insects. With all the advancement of modern living. So.
When extension begins, we find that Balaram and Yogamaya make arrangements for that transaction of Krishna, where Rasamrita Murti, Krishna, the embodiment of all rasas, tastes himself. Rasa is tasting himself. It is different in the case of the mundane rasa, where the soul is the subject and the rasa is an object to be enjoyed by him. But here, rasa is himself the highest subject, and he is tasting himself. Sukha Rupa Krishna Kore Sukha Ashwadan. He then gradually extends himself, and so we find Baladeva, who is a facsimile of Krishna. But because in the science of rasa, Baladev's direct approach to Madhura Ras is not admissible.
It's here, of course, most of that, for most of us, this sounds, it's pretty lofty, or we might say it's pretty heady. But, in the general field, say like Hinduism, somebody says Ganesh, somebody says every god is a Bhagavan, and of course we don't accept that, and Brahman is supreme, and of course we don't accept that, and then you get into the different Vishnu communities, Vishnu Bhaktas, Madhvas, Sri Vaishnavas, Vaikanasas. There's a few of them around, been around a long time, even Lingaites and all these things. So, everybody believes what they believe is the highest, right? So how do you actually find out? And how would you get to the end of the story to find out, well, what is the highest? What is the, not in the sense that it's higher in the sense of, pushing everything else down, but what is the ontology of things, and how can we understand who is actually the Supreme? Only when you discuss these kind of matters, which is the Lord's desire, his energies, his shaktis, what his purpose is, what brings about a particular avatar, the necessity means why the Lord wants to manifest a particular avatar. There's some reason, there's some, something there. Only when discussing these things, rasa, then you can find out who is the Supreme. Anything less than rasa, there's even a Purana that says Devi is supreme. In the Devi Purana, it says Devi supreme. In the Shiva Purana, it says Shiva is supreme. And then in the Vishnu Purana, it says Shiva is supreme. And the Hanuman Charita says something about Hanuman. So where do you go with all this? Well, only when you finally come to analyze relationships with the Supreme Lord, or these lords, and immediately Ganesh and everybody else just falls off the list. They are not the Supreme Lord, or they are not a manifestation of the Supreme Lord in terms of Vishnu Tattva or something like that. There's something different there. In the modes of nature, they're manifestations of the potency of the Supreme Lord, but in the material world, different. So then when you get to the Vishnu avatars, and to understand, okay, the Vishnu avatars are there's 25 or maybe 12, 10, however, there are actually hundreds of thousands of avatars. Are they all equal? How do you figure this out? Only by the analysis of rasa and the energies and the play of the energies of the Supreme Lord. Well, when you go to that school of thought, the deck just automatically shuffles itself, and you come out with Krishna as the Supreme Personality of Godhead on top. The Deva, what is it? Deva Jagatpadeva, God of gods. Yes, there are many sub-controllers, and they are not all equal. They are also of different potencies. And then the Vishnu avatars, and they have different functions, and they perform different tasks in the world. It's a vast, vast subject, making it difficult for people, but then very easy to go astray, because there's so many things to understand. But the world has got such a, a short attention span these days, that they can't even stay in conversation on us. 45 minutes, that's about it. But they could actually sit and discuss things for hours. Only politics, only economics. Nobody actually thought that religion and understanding God is worth a few hours of conversation every day. It's just like, that's ridiculous. That's fanaticism. Why shouldn't it be? If there is a supreme being, and there is a better place to be, and all that stuff is true, probably it's pretty good to be fanatic about it, right? You understand what I'm saying? We're publishing in this next issue of the Touchstone one of the speeches that Srila Prabhupada read out loud and had recorded when he first came to America, which is written by Bhakti Siddhanta, correct?
Mm-hmm.
By Bhakti Siddhanta from the 1933 edition of the Brahma Samhita. And this, in substance, is the mission of Mahaprabhu in that speech. It is the mission of Bhakti Siddhanta. It is the mission of Prabhupada. It is the mission of human life. And it is the first of gospels. A gospel means, in Latin, it means the good news. A gospel is like, hey, did you hear the gospel, you know? Ken got his $300,000, $300 million thing, and he's giving Guru Maharaj, $5 million. That'd be a gospel, right? No, but a gospel means like some really, like an Upanishad. If Vaishnavism used the word gospel, an Upanishad would be a gospel. It's some good message, it's some good enlightenment, it's some good story. Okay, so you want to continue.
But because in the science of rasa, Baladev's direct approach to Madhura rasa is not admissible, he extends himself as a special potency, Yogamaya, and goes to perform in that Madhura rasa.
So he's saying then, as Yogamaya, but is he going to mention Ananga Manjari?
That's the next section.
Okay, so,
Another representation or delegation of Baladev is Ananga Manjari, the younger sister of Srimati Radharani. It is found that Baladev, as Ananga Manjari, participates there in the service of Radharani.
no, wait, okay. So we crossed over the thing about Subhadra. So that's a whole topic in itself. I suggest you dig up that article that we wrote, Yuri and I put together in the Touchstone, the position of Subhadra, because it's beautifully complicated. There's a Subhadra. There's more than one Subhadra. There's a Subhadra in Leela. There's a Subhadra on the altar in Jagannath Puri. Who's who and what's what, So that's all in that article. Very, very beautiful. Contradicting statements from previous acharyas, saying something about Subhadra. But they're talking about different Subhadras. They say different things about Subhadra, And it seems like, oh, gee, Prabhupada says one thing, and Sharma says another thing, or something like that, It's like, oh, gee. Well, it turns out they're talking about two people with the same name. They're not talking about the same manifestation of Krishna's energy, Yogamaya. So anyway, that's a separate read. If you're interested, read that. We could have class just on that someday. That was very nice, very revealing journey to embrace these apparent contradiction and find out how it all works. And if anything, that's probably the biggest fault in Vaishnavism in the modern world. It's just so complicated. There's so many things to actually understand. Like even one of my oldest friends, he joined the movement when he was 13. He became a disciple of Prabhupada when he was 13, everything. I sent him a picture of Kaliya Mardana Krishna, and he writes back, oh, Kaliya Krishna, really beautiful. Well, there's no such thing as Kaliya Krishna. Kaliya is not a consort. In the next Kali Yuga, he spells Garuda for a yuga, and Kaliya becomes the Vimana of Vishnu, and Garuda takes a break for that Kali Yuga. He's not the carrier. But when you say Kaliya Krishna, you're talking like Gornitai, Radha Krishna. They're like, no. He's being beaten down by Krishna. It's Kaliya Mardana Krishna. He's being danced on by Krishna. He's not a consort of Krishna. Here's Kaliya Krishna, Radha Krishna, Gornitai, Gaur Gadadhar, Jagana Subhadra Baladev, Panchatattva. No, not at all, right? But they don't look. But if you look how Srila Prabhupada writes a letter to Pejwar Swami back in the 1970s, and says that he won't be able to attend some function in Udupi because he's off to Fiji to install Kaliya Mardana Krishna, not Kaliya Krishna. So Prabhupada was the only one in ISKCON who knew what the deities were actually called. Everybody else doesn't pay attention, except for the Sankirtan scores, how much money is being collected and all that kind of stuff. Actually, what's our monthly budget? You don't know. What's our monthly budget, dear Lisa? You don't know.
700.
What's our monthly budget, Premananda? How much money did Advaita collect last month? None of you know any of those questions except the people who did it and the people who need to know about it. If we were in ISKCON, everybody knows about the money, man. Everybody knows, because every day they're announcing who's the biggest collector, who sold the most books. Every day. It's a non-stop. But those aren't the most important things. In the long run and sustainability of Krishna consciousness, it requires people to have a proper understanding. Just the size of things is actually secondary. You see there, I mean, I've seen pictures of temples in this country that have over 4 tons of gold smeared all over the temples. 4 tons of gold. Not paint, real gold, just plastered all over the Lakshmi temple in Vellore. Yeah. 4 tons of gold, that's 8,000 pounds of gold smeared all over the place. Gold sidewalks, gold walls, gold ceilings, gold pillars, gold doors, everything gold, right? And then you go to Sri Rangam and this one and that one, and there are temples out there in Tamil Nadu and just little podunk villages, which are just like awesome buildings of construction and just amazing. So that's what the world needs, is another temple made of concrete and rebar, right? And imported glass from Hong Kong or something. So it's not what the world needs, really. But that's what most of the people think the world needs. What the world needs is a better understanding, not a different type of haircut. Of course, you do know in the time of Prabhupada, if this was Prabhupada in this chair, there wouldn't be a single man out here that didn't have a shaved head. Every man in the Hare Krishna movement in 1976 had a shaved head except 2 people.
2 people.
Jai Tirtha and I think Bhagavan. Huh? Atreya Rishi. Yeah, 3. Yeah, 3. Or not Bhagavan, Atreya. It was like, now, the only people with shaved heads in those temples are the newbies. When you're an older devotee, you can have long hair again. Well, you know what? Long hair, short hair. It got nothing to do with Krishna consciousness. I didn't hear anything about hair in the Bhagavatam, like which way your hair must be. And since Parvat and Narada Muni have joined us, I don't think we can criticize long hair, since the rishis are here, right? But Bhakti Vinod said, and like the worldly Vaishnavas, those without seekas. That's what in one of his books he introduced the worldly Vaishnavas, the Vaishnavas who are in the world, right? and how you can recognize them. He said they don't have seekas. Those are worldly Vaishnavas, so it's like. But it really, although in appearance is to be considered, exactly what that is it's not the most important thing. We want to see that some of that is maintained for sure. But to maintain all of that at the highest standard, but to neglect the spiritual knowledge that forms the foundation of everything that we do is a big mistake. It's really a big mistake. So, there's lots to learn, lots to understand. And how else are we to absorb our thoughts? And the world is so absorbing, right? It's absorbing. So how else are you to absorb your mind if you do not avail yourself of the knowledge that's available and study? Then what hope is there to think about Krishna? Because everything we're going to be thinking about is the world. Of course, you know, there was a devotee once, he was running Spiritual Sky Incense Company for the movement, for Prabhupada, for the Los Angeles temple. Kind of like Advaita is the main center finances for this ashram every month because he has his program is working and making money. So, I mean, what could be what could be more boring, what could be more mundane than designing a website for some non-devotional client? I mean, you just want to quit probably 3 times a day. So this devotee was doing Spiritual Sky Incense at the time. And so when Prabhupada came to Los Angeles, he offered Prabhupada, I come to Mangal Arti, and I just think about packing incense and billing and shipping and collecting accounts, and it's just like I can't even think, about the deities. I'm just like, as soon as I walk in the temple, and my head's just filled with business. 4:30 in the morning. Prabhupada said, yes, now you are becoming Krishna conscious. Because that is not your business. That is Krishna's business. So, and you know what? This is probably not as caustic as Spiritual Sky Incense, because as it turns out, the Spiritual Sky Incense Company could be the biggest cause of cancer amongst devotees ever. It was a totally, absolutely, 100% toxic industry of making incense out of absolute pure toxic chemicals. And if you see the films, of the old Hare Krishna films, of the devotees banging the sticks, and there's all this dust and chemical, they're wearing these big rubber gloves. I mean, that stuff is just poison. But that poisonous business at the time was Krishna's business for maintaining, and the devotees that worked in it obtained their spiritual credits. Prabhupada was very happy by it. Ultimately, everything in this world is toxic. Even that milk is toxic. Everything in this world is killing us little by little. There is no nectar of immortality here, except the holy name. That's the nectar of immortality. So the philosophy people to understand is the eternal world is true. And the holy name comes from that world. Golokera Premadan Harinam Sankirtan. The name of Krishna, the Sankirtan, the chanting, that vibration, it descends from the spiritual world. It enters through our ear, rebounds in our tongue, and gives us a direct connection with that world. This world, none of it matters. You have so many people on your friends list in your iPhone, and when you're gone, all those names are gone. You never meet them. They don't know you. It's all gone. Gone, gone, gone. And how long has it been happening? Forever, forever, forever. We've been having families, children, wives, husbands, countries, prime ministerships. I don't know who said it first. It's probably been said many times. As a king, we ruled over great kingdoms. As Lord Brahma, we created universes. As pigs, we eat mountains of stools. Still we are hungry. Still we are not satisfied. You know why? Because there's no satisfaction in this world. It's not part of the Mahatattva. Satisfaction. Frustration, however, probably has a good position. Envy, hatred, all these things. I don't even know if satisfaction's on the list. Happiness, peace, shanti. Where? Again, the birds are just crying for food. The cat, get our little cats, get their hands on them little birds. You see how peaceful the morning is around here, And if they was a little bit bigger, they'd be eating you. The cats, understand? Well, there's no people or nice, my nice kitty cat, my nice pet. What is nice? There's nothing nice here. Nothing. Even the sun rays. Oh, nice sunny day. The UV rays are killing people in Kali Yuga. Even the sun is killing people in Kali Yuga because of the way they've lived and the way that they've done to the world. The very sun rays comes and kills them. Ultraviolet. So it is not fanaticism, and if it is, it should be heartily embraced. But there's another kind of fanaticism which is there at the same time, which has to be left behind. the neophyte fanaticism. A neophyte's fanaticism is accompanied by a short span of tolerance, or no tolerance. Like when I was first becoming a devotee, it wasn't fully a devotee living in the temple, but the guy I was living with was smoking, and we're in a car together, and so he lit up a cigarette, and I said, "Hey man, put out the coffin nails," and he went, and he put his cigarette back in, like this, and put his cigarette back in his mouth, so I just smashed it into his face. That's neophyte fanaticism. It probably would have been easier just to roll down the window, right? Instead, I just crammed the cigarette in his face. Or one day in Mangalore, I was in a restaurant with some of our workers doing construction stuff, but we were having lunch there. Then we had to leave. This guy comes in there and he sits down and he lights a cigarette. There's a big no smoking sign. It's a restaurant. I said, "Sir," he's on the table. I said, "So he's with his girlfriend, young guy." I said, "Sir, this is a no smoking." He goes. So I got up, I walked over there, I took the cigarette out of his mouth, and I threw it in his cup of tea. And I sat back down and finished eating as fast as I could and got out of there, because he was on his cell phone trying to get that thing to work to call his buddies to come and beat up on him. Don't try those kind of moves. They're very neophyte. They can sometimes backfire severely. But every once in a while I pull one of them off successfully. No, but that's a difference between advanced fanaticism. One is you have more tolerance for people's mistakes and for their anarthas and everything like that. And in the beginning, it's like, forget that guy, I'm trying to save number one. So we have to be fanatical in the beginning, a little bit hardish in order to protect ourselves. But when advancement is there, there's no need to be hard. To be firm, you don't have to be hard. To be attracted to Krishna, you don't have to manifest aversion to other things. Aversion actually is the flip side of attachment. Aversion shines through. Like in big institutions, you'll get, the fanatical brahmacharis. They can't don't want to look towards the ladies. The mothers won't say a word to them and everything like that. They're usually first on the list to check out. It's aversion is another sign of attraction or attachment. So one time, one devotee, same age as me, exact same age, same month, I think. And this devotee was at that time about 40-some years old. And Sri Ramar said, "You never married? Why?" And so this devotee said, "Oh, it's just a big hassle, Yeah, having a wife, kids, just a big headache, big hassle. So I went to avoid." Sri Ramar said, "Wrong answer. Wrong answer. This is not the answer. If someone is going to be a brahmachari or a sannyasi, it has nothing to do with not wanting to have a responsibility of work, and it has nothing to do with the negative. It should have to do only with the positive, what you want to do in the positive, and that is, I want all my energy for the service of Guru and Krishna, therefore I choose to be a brahmachari, not to marry, not to have a family, or I choose to be a sannyasi, something like that, because of serving Krishna and Guru. Oh, that's a good reason. But if somebody says, I stay brahmachari, I become brahmachari because I don't want the hassle, that is simply immaturity speaking. And for that speaker, best thing is get married and learn responsible life. That's the best thing. Because brahmachari doesn't mean hanging out, leading a lazy life of no responsibility. That's not what it means at all. It means a lot of responsibility. So all devotee life means responsibility. Okay, so today's special day, Lord Balaram, in terms of Baladeva, Balaram is usually, celebrated mostly in terms of the knowledge of Guru Tattva. Baladeva is Guru Tattva. Baladeva is Rama in the Maha Mantra. And all of these are partially true. but they are not the full. In other words, if you got the folder on Guru Tattva, on Baladeva Tattva, the Gaudiya Siddhanta folder, okay, here it is, everything on Baladeva, you would see that the more intricate is how he occupies a kind of, is it something like conspicuous by his absence? In Madhurya Ras, it's such a subtle spiritual. How can it be? How are the things connected? And the part that he's actually Guru Tattva is a smaller part of the discord. It's not the most, because it's pretty simple. Baladev is the Guru Tattva for Vatsalya Ras, and for Sakya Ras, and for Dasi Ras, and for whatever existing Shantaras, but not Madhurya Ras. So then the question is, well then who is the Guru Tattva for Madhurya Ras? I guess you have to read a little bit more. People don't, it's very revealing. People don't even read the books that we have, that are available. How many of my disciples have not even read the books that I've written? And if you understand those books, combined with Sridhar Maharaj's books, you can stand up against anything and anybody. Nobody can push you down. Nobody can push you out of the way. You had the incomplete idea, almost the right idea. We got the idea. Now all we have to do is follow it, practice it. But as far as having the idea, we got it. In many other cases, people don't have the idea, but they got the practice. They got the practice down to such a point that if you're not there for Mangal Artik, they throw you out of the temple. You miss 3 Mangal Artiks and they throw you out of the temple. They got the practice down. Right? What it all means and where it's all going, they haven't any idea. Just pedal on the metal and the wind's blowing in your hair, and that's all that matters. It's like the old days when you're hippie. You were a hippie. It didn't matter where you were going. The important thing is you're going. You're on the move. Where are you going? I don't know. I'm going. Guys used to just get out and hitchhike, and after about 15 minutes, didn't get a ride going this way. Just step on the other side of the road and get a ride going that way, because it don't matter. Just so you're moving. Right? So they're kind of like that. Just so they're constructing. Just so they're building bigger, and just so it's big. If it's big, nothing else matters. And I predict that as a big mistake. Not a total mistake, but a big mistake. Especially for the leaders, to be satisfied simply with size and such. And what we're doing here is, it isn't even a shoe closet for some organizations. Like the Lakshmi temple, the guy asked us, did we have a guest house here? And we said, no, but there's some nice hotels nearby. Right? This year we can say, yeah, we have 2. So I said, you probably have some guest rooms there. He said, yes, yeah, we have guest rooms. I said, how many guest rooms do you have? With attached bath and, marble floors and nice, not fixed up like this. But he said 450. 450 guest rooms. And that man who came here a couple weeks ago to invite me to Tirupati to see some project they're building, something like 1,000 rooms.
Yeah, that complex. Yeah.
Something like 1,000 rooms. So don't anybody get puffed up around here about our big guest houses. But this is. If you wanted to say, well, how did the Goswamis live? They didn't have big guest houses. They had little houses like these brahmachari houses. They had little facilities. And Krishna was in a garden, Radha Damodar. Most of the buildings you see there weren't even there in that time. It was just in a garden. It was a little place for the deities, a little place for devotees. There were huts tucked under trees. Now you go there now, there's no trees. It's just asphalt, and cement, and barbed wire, and somehow or another, it's still Vrindavan atmosphere, but man, it's pretty toxic. Last time real dust of Vrindavan settled on your head there was probably about 30, 40 years ago. Now it's just cement dust and road dust and diesel dust and truck dust and imported dirt from outside for landfill. But I guess it all gets converted into being the brudge. But in the time of the Goswamis, it was very, very different. Very different. Yeah, so this is sort of a blessing here, living on a riverbank, the Kaveri, with this much nature around, minimal disturbances here and there, as opposed to 24-hour noise in Bangalore, all night, day and night, non-stop. And when it rains, it's all the sewers flood, and there's sewage water running everywhere. It even runs inside your house if you're in the wrong place, and it's just like, loving it. Life in Bangalore. Why? I don't know. I can't figure out why. But it is. All right, so any questions or anything? I mean, don't want to talk too long. Or?
You're saying about Baladeva being the Adiguru for Shantadasa Sakya Vatsalya and Radharani being the Guru for Madhurya.
I didn't say that.
Well, the Acharyas say.
But I didn't mention that. That's
Yeah.
for another topic sometime.
So, in reality, would it be correct to say that Radharani is actually the Adi Guru?
Of course. Yeah. You know, one... yeah. That's all right. Once I was at this program on Maui, and this devotee wanted to know the highest meaning of something. And I said, really, the highest meaning of something doesn't even concern the people that are sitting here as far as I'm concerned. What concerns the people sitting here, I was talking about that particular group in Hawaii, which were, anyway, I don't even know if the basics concerned them, but certainly they didn't need to know about higher topics and rasa and all these things. They were a bunch of dope smoking hippies, basically. And so I said, but, you know, this thing, always we have to discuss the highest. And this became a fashion in some of the modern Hare Krishna groups. It had to be the highest. Whatever it was, had to be the highest, you know. But that's not necessarily, you know. The ladder has many steps on it. You don't just try to jump up on the top one. In fact, you might not want to go to the top one. You might want to hang a little distant and below where you can hang on to something, because once you get to the top one, there ain't nowhere else but, oh, and you're done, you know. So who, you know, it's just like Everest. Even if you said, no, you can get to Everest, you can stand up. Why would I want to stand on top of Mount Everest? It's such a beautiful thing to look at. Why would I want to go up there and pass urine on top of it? And you know, Everest is full of dead bodies. You just can't see them. They're in the snow. There are hundreds of dead people just laying up there in avalanches, snow, frozen. And even sometimes they see them at a distance. The next year, they'll see a body partially exposed, a hand hanging out of the snow. They can't even get to them. You know, there are hundreds of dead bodies all over Mount Everest. Every year, those people that get killed, you ever hear of them coming home? No, they're just up there. Hundreds of dead people. For every 100 people who climb Everest, 10 of them stay there forever. 1 out of 10 people who climb that mountain die is the average. Why would I want to go there? So even if somebody says, no, you can come the highest. It's just like the position of the living entity is why I should want to go there. You know? Doesn't seem to be my domain. You know, a little distant and below is as high as a jiva needs to go. It's pretty much the real truth of the matter. And what is the next highest step is what's your next step? You don't worry about my next step. Chiranjeevi has to know what his next step is. You know, he applied for initiation. That's good. Well, I made that application a long time ago. So what's my next step? Whatever's my next step, in one sense, that's the highest. Concern yourself with the work of your class, I should say. The studies of your class. Don't concern with somebody else. And progress with your class in your class. And our guardians, well, they know everything perfect. And they know exactly when you're ready. When you've cooked that pie enough, when you've cooked that bread enough, they know exactly. They're not like us. We can't figure it out. One time good, next time not bad, this time not. They're perfect. So we rely on their judgment to know when we're qualified. It's much better, isn't it? Just as a reasonable, who's going to judge when we're ready? Ourselves? That could be fatal, rather. How to judge yourself when you are advanced. That's dangerous. So back to the question about...
No, I'm just saying, ultimately, I ask you for
Yes,
that.
yeah, that's true. Any other questions? Mata?
It says in this text here that Balaram is a facsimile of Krishna. So facsimile, how can we understand that?
Sri Maharaj just loved these words like he loved these words like, they massacred the philosophy. A massacre is where you just take people laying all over the place, blood and heads, a total massacre, He said, they massacred this, or he said, Bhagavatam, the greatest invention to ever come to human society. Invention, the word invention means just some kind of man-made creation. But he said, love of God, the greatest invention to come to humanity. Invention. It's not really. He liked to use these words that have these otherwise...
Fictitious demarcation.
Huh?
A fictitious demarcation.
Yeah, he called the jiva, the tasta shakti, a fictitious demarcation. Fictitious means it's not true. It's not true. And so some people, anyway, there's a whole other school of thought that came on that, but instead of, it has no permanent position. The marginal plane is always shifting. It's marginal. But anyway, some people took it like that. So he liked to use these words. The greatest thing ever invented, prema. Invented? Understand? So this is a single word. It has no direct application to its exact meaning. Its facsimile is like a Xerox, like a ditto, like a duplicate. You just can't go through the list of thesauruses and keep getting the words to define it, because you end up with a facsimile is just a dupe, a carbon copy. It's not the original. Well, in that sense, then it's true. It's not the original. There's only one original Krishna, and that's not in Dwarka. That's not anywhere except with Srimati Radharani. That's the Adi Swayam Bhagavan. When Krishna is alone doing some other kind of leela, which is cowherd boys, that's different. That's called Adi Prakash.
Swayam Prakash.
Swayam Prakash. Swayam Prakash. Right. But where is in the infinite eternal Goloka? Where is the original Lord? And that is always with this consort, with the Hladini Shakti. And everything else is just a flower arrangement for that, for the divine couple. Everything else is just an offering and a flower arrangement. All the other rasas, everything. They have no independent structure, no independent status. They don't exist without the center rasa, which they are all ultimately creating the background and environment so that rasa can happen. There has to be a family. Krishna has to be able to sneak out. You've got to have friends that you can talk to the next day about it, and people to rumor, and you need all this stuff. And so Lord Balaram takes care of manifesting all that stuff. And Krishna manifests himself in different places, he's all over the place. He's in many places. He's in 1 million places at one time, doing 1 billion things at one time. No problem. How many things can you do? You can stir the halava and turn your head and answer a question. Gee, you can talk and stir halava at the same time. You might even then reach over and adjust the flame on the sweet rice. Wow, he can do 3 things at a time. Well, Krishna can talk to 1 billion people at a time. He could be in billions of places at the same time. He doesn't need a notebook to keep track of what's going on, or an iPhone, or a smartphone. Understand? But people that figure, no, there is no God. All this is just an accident. Just whatever. It blew up, and then some slimy things one day just came up out of the gooey ocean. Shook off them scales and grew some hands and feet, some noses and eyes, and walked on down to Walmart. The journey of the human being. Oh God, what a mess. But only when rasa is discussed, like the finer things, then you can understand what is Vishnu, what is Krishna, that Krishna's act. When you look just at the externals, Vishnu looks like Supreme. Krishna looks like Vishnu lost the plot. Became a thief, a cowherd. What are you doing there? Running around with the cows. It doesn't. The rest of Vishnu avatars, they got your attention from day one. They grow to be half the size of the universe. They're half man, half lion, half boar, fighting great battles, all this stuff. Krishna is just sneaking around in Vrindavan. So externally it doesn't look like that could possibly be the Supreme Lord. That looks like the Supreme Lord lost the plot. Because he's not Supreme Lording there, he's Supreme enjoying there. Which is actually the first function of the Supreme Lord, is his own enjoyment, not the troublesome tasks of this world. They are his last and most insignificant concern, actually. And the world needs a little bit of dose of that, There's too much of this God's on my side. It's there in the institutions, God's on their side, not with anybody else. And then it's there with the world religions, God's on our side. And the rest of the religions are the Buddhists, and they say we don't have a God. And then there's the Muslims, the Christians, and the Jews. They all come from the same house. That they come from the same family. There's a father and two brothers. And that creates Jews, Christians, and Muslims out of that little household. It's called, what is it called?
House of Abraham.
The House of Abraham. That was a big house. Actually, it was more like a Chittai mud house with one well, but he's measuring palaces. Anyway, that's what they are, just one deranged desert family. And their ideas of God are just so absolutely pathetic. It's hard to consider them religious. Or it's better at that point to say, yes, they are religions. Krishna consciousness is not a religion of this world. Religions are groups of people that have confused knowledge. That's religion. Every one of them has some major confusion. And anybody who knows the truth, the reality of the Supreme Person, knows that they're not part of a religion. Dharma is another thing. Dharmantu shak shak bhagavat panitam. Dharma, that's another thing. And what religion, what dharma these religions are doing? Chopping off each other's heads of the same religion, because they have a different tilak, or they don't have tilak or something. Chop off their heads. Previously, they used to chop off people's thumbs. They used to chop off their finger so that they couldn't. How is that? They couldn't.
Oh, there's 2 fingers and 3 fingers.
Right, but they would chop off their finger so they couldn't do a 3-finger blessing. The priest would chop off the other finger's priest, because they were arguing, should you bless like this, or should you bless like this? So the guys that were saying 2 fingers catch the other priest and cut his finger off. Ha! Now you can only bless like this, right? Now this is deep religious conversion taking place here. And if you study religions of the world, what have they been more than that? Coming in, burning people's temples, knocking down something, Like in Wehutla, there's that church, but in the back of that church, there's a cave. So it was probably some local, some place of doing some, Mayan or Aztec or some ritual. So then they put their church inside that thing, and they make that cave. And they did that everywhere. The Muslims do that. And they would break the temple and build their mosque. What has any of this got to do with the truth and reality? It has nothing to do. It has only to do with this world. So once those things start happening, big buildings, politics, court cases, emperors and all this, it's gone. It's just showtime for the public. The real search for truth doesn't happen in those environments. A little bit, but not much in that. They don't. The environment is everything. Now, our acharyas have always been in favor of moving to the cities, not to the country. So what are we doing out here? Well, it didn't mean they were forever into moving to the city. And we do things in the city. But for us, the city is unmanageable. Financially, everything. And then in the end, it says people will run from the cities. And they will run to the country in order to find food. Now I asked Rupanuga what would happen here about 10 years ago. I said, Rupanuga, what if the army just came in, looped around here, said you can access the river but not more than 50 feet out. You're not leaving this place. What do you think will happen to us? He goes, it's starve to death inside here. I said, Bubba, the first thing is we'd all probably put on 2-3 kgs because all we would be eating is fried paneer and ghee. Right? I said, and then we'd be growing there, and we'd be eating some shocks that grow naturally, and then we'd be growing, and about 20, 30 days later, you'd be harvesting some zucchini, something, and everything like that. But first off, there'd be weight gain, because we would just grow food. Because we have so much land and we have water, and that's all you need, right? Now, you take the same scenario and you're in an apartment building somewhere in Kormangala. You're screwed. The day that happens, you're done. There's no water to even flush your toilet, maybe. You pick the wrong place to live. Up the elevator 13 floors and down the hall. Bad call. Right here, there's the river. Everything, no matter what, you can carry water, there's water. It's like all civilizations in the ancient world were on the rivers. All of them. Because without water, you're done. And now many of the world's biggest civilizations, their biggest question is continued water supply. Even here, Bangalore, all this, it's stretched. It's stretched. But for us, some adjustment, there'll always be water. So this is where people will run to. So the fact is, the cities were once one thing, now they're something else. Might not be the best place to have your main setup, the city. No place to run to. So Prabhupada started farms, He started farms. And those farms are supposed to be self-sufficient as far as possible. They shouldn't require everything from the city, They were to be self-sufficient. And they were to be an example of Krishna-conscious living. However, that failed. Krishna-conscious living doesn't mean to get in the car, drive to Bangalore, and go to a cricket match and sell cricket hats in the parking lot. And come back to your farm and stop at the Walmart and buy some vegetables on the way home. That's what farm life in ISKCON farms turned out to be. People living in the country, going to the cities, collecting money to live. That's not what they're supposed to be. They're supposed to be living there and setting an example of Krishna-conscious living in the country. And that, foremost, means cows and grow your own food. So it's very hard to achieve. So we're pretty close to that here. We're not too far from the city. The cities aren't too big. There's one big one, one small one. We're far enough away that last night it was just so great. I was laying there in the bed. I got up and then I went back to bed and I was laying there and I was thinking, wow, there's 1 billion people in this country. And only me and that cricket are awake. There was a cricket outside the window going, kick, 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 doing the cricket thing, It was completely quiet. And I was just laying there, in a country with 1 billion other people, just that cricket was complete silence. I've spent whole nights in Bangalore where the sound didn't stop, in Delhi, and Vrindavan even, many nights where, forget it, you can hear a cricket there. In fact, somebody turns off the Bollywood music, you wake up and go, what happened? Why is it so quiet? Remember that boy who came from Radha? The quiet freaked him out. All the sounds of the birds and the crickets and all that sound. The boy was totally disturbed, crying, totally lost it. Because it's never quiet in Vrindavan, never. For the last 100 years, it's just noise. Best time to go to Vrindavan is December, January, when it's really cold. Because then everybody goes to bed early, everybody shuts their doors and windows. But in the summer, everybody pulls their TV and radio out onto the rooftop, and there's this cinema music blasting and videos playing all night long. But in the winter, everybody boxes it up, locks it up, goes to bed early. Even the monkeys go to bed early. But in the winter, in the summer, they roam around all night fighting. And, yeah, it's terrible. So the situation here in terms, there's always room for improvement. And I'm so happy to see the different departments developing, preaching going on, house programs, book distribution going on the tables in different places. Really, really nice. Publications being made from the little office over here. On a scale of how many people live here and what we actually produce and what we actually do, I'd say we're somewhere around the leading temple of the whole world, actually, in many ways, on a scale. On another scale, we don't even get on the scale. We're so far. They have parking lots bigger than our place. You get 4-acre parking lots. We only have a 2-acre ashram. They get 4-acre parking lots. We bought a farm in Mexico. It was 12 acres, 12 and a half acres, 5 hectares. Hectares? Hectares. The last farm that they gave up in ISKCON was 300 hectares or something like that in Mexico. And the one down in Australia is 1,000 acres or 1,000 hectares, and it's just like ours is here is 1/2 a hectare, one hectare. So what is that? Your parking lot? No, that's everything. That's just, you don't even get on this scale. Yeah. So from such a small operation with such few people, and if you go back in the past, most of these few men were just kids at the time. And this little ashram, which doesn't even have a wall around it, until they have a wall around it, has produced literature of the highest quality that's gone literally all over the world and translated into various languages. I'm talking about the books of Srila Sridhar Maharaj, Srila Prabhupada, some of our own publications, the Gita, and things like that. So, on that level, I'm sure Srila Prabhupada would be very, not just happy and pleased, but inspired to see the work going on here, because this type of work grows deep roots and lasts. Whereas other things that are just based on money and just the ability to spend money and don't have a good philosophical foundation, they can be taken away, blown away by the slightest change in society. Trends is whoop, empty, blown away. The one, Krishna says, one who comes for the knowledge. This is in Bhagavad Gita. People come for the opulence, they come out of curiosity. What are the other reasons? 4 reasons. Knowledge.
Stress.
They're stressed out. Almost all of the others go away in time. Those with knowledge prove to be the best, Krishna says. Those who come to him in search of knowledge, because that doesn't change socially so easily. Something just can't come blowing by that changes the knowledge. The knowledge is connected to eternity. Whereas the temple, what should a temple look like? Depends on which culture you're from. All the temples in India, as you go around, they all look different because they're from different cultures. So what should a temple look like? Well, there's some suggestions, but But when it comes to Siddhanta and proper understanding, it's not a suggestion. It's not a suggestion that might be true or might not, or you could take it or leave it, it doesn't really matter. That's not what Siddhanta is. You follow? What I'm saying? Baladeva Purnima ki jai.
Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare